All right. So what you'll be doing is placing the ball anywhere on your belly. It can be low, and again, your pillow if it's a pillow, or it can be up high. And we'll play with the positioning. So you're going to lay down on there, and we're going to let the forehead rest either on the backs of your hands, or you could use another pillow or something if you'd like. Also, okay, so once you get the ball or that pillow situated, go ahead and close down your eyes and see if you can breathe into your belly where the ball or the pillow or the blanket is underneath you. So take a big breath in through the nose. You'll feel your belly press against the ball or the pillow or the blanket. And then you'll exhale slowly and let the ball or whatever it is under your belly sink into your body. And continue to do this, kind of adjusting as needed. If it's too intense in the position it's in, maybe you move up or you move down. But again, I invite you to close your eyes and focus on the breath. You'll hear me say that, I don't know, maybe 1,000 times during our practice this morning about focusing back in on the breath. It is the most important part of this practice. Good. Now you might play with some positioning of the rest of your body. Some of you might decide coming up on your forearms is going to give you what you need. And it might give you a little more, it might give you a little less. Okay? Now, if you're on a ball, this will work really well. It'll work okay if you're on a pillow or a blanket. You can just kind of rock your hips side to side. So doing a little cross fiber work on these tissues as I just gently rock my hips side to side, and slower is better. Now, if you don't have a ball or this isn't working for you, just continue to focus on the deep and slow inhales into the belly, and then the really, really slow exhales, even slower than the inhale. So we'll take 5 more of those breaths. And know that we are focusing on the liver meridian right now. So that liver meridian runs along the right side of the body from right about that rib cage on the right side, through the belly, down through the inner thigh, all the way down to the inner ankle into the bottom of your foot. And just a couple more deep breaths. And then slowly set the ball off to the side. Now, just for a moment, bring your hips back towards your heels, kind of like a child's pose. If that doesn't work on your knees, you could round your spine like a cat instead. So just moving the back into some flexion, sort of a counter pose for what you were just doing with the ball underneath you. And then you'll eventually come back down onto the belly and then slide your elbows forward of your shoulders. So this is called Sphinx if you're familiar with yoga. So from here, what I'm thinking about is almost like I'm trying to drag my body forwards. I'm pressing into my elbows and hands and lengthening the front of my body. So in no way am I trying to see how far I can bend backwards. What I'm doing is thinking of how long can I get the tissues that I was just rolling or using my ball or my blanket under my belly. How long can I get those tissues on the front side of my body? You may also feel the back a little bit, especially if you're really tight in your lower back, but focus more on the front side of your body than the back side. Now, some of you might be going, I don't even feel this at all. So some of you might slide your hands out and start to press very slowly into your hands to give yourself what you need in the front side of the body. We'll be here for 3 more big breaths. And 2 more big breaths. And 1 more big breath in and out. Good. And slowly release down. Bring your forehead to the backs of the hands and bend your knees, and you can do a little bit of a windshield wiper type movement with the legs, nice and slow. So not only are you affecting the liver meridian when you lay on the ball or whatever you had underneath you, and when we do this stretch that you just did, the Sphinx posture, but you're also addressing, believe it or not, your hip flexors that run all the way up in towards your torso. Most people think of hip flexors as just this little section right here where the leg connects to the hips, but actually the hip flexors go all the way up. So if you've ever been told you have tight hip flexors and you don't stretch the belly, you're missing a big chunk of your hip flexors. So just know that. All right, so we are going to move on. So if you have a foam roller, you might choose to use that. If you don't, that is also fine. You might use your balls for this. So we're going to be doing a little release for the inner thigh. So I'll show you some variations on how you can do this. So if you have balls and maybe a block, you'll place the balls on top of the block and you'll be laying on your belly eventually. Know that even if you don't go the whole length of the inner thigh, it's fine. Everything's connected. So even if you're only getting a section of this inner thigh, you're still affecting the whole inner thigh. So if you have balls and a block, you might want to try the balls on top of your block here. And you can just do some forwards and backwards motion. If you didn't have a block, you could try it without the block. Okay? And if you had a foam roller, you might choose to use a foam roller. You might try each one and see which seems most appropriate for you. So I'm laying on my belly. Either leg is fine. So either leg is fine. We'll be doing both, so it's fine for you to start on either side. Now, do make sure that you're also really connecting with that core. So sometimes when you're laying on your belly, we can get like really extended in the low back. So you're almost in a plank position of sorts. So make sure that you're keeping the core tight and not coming into a sway back here. So again, roller is fine. Balls on the floor or balls on top of the block is also fine. So you can go forwards and backwards here. You can also do some internal and external rotation or extending and bending of the knee. So much of this is really intuitive. So check in. If your lower back gets tired or your arms get tired, just lay on your belly, relax, and you can do some bending and straightening. Or I like this one where you shake the balls and go side to side. You're doing some cross fiber work when you do that. The leg can be straight or bent. So you can see I'm just kind of rocking my leg across the double balls. Some of that could also work on your roller. So any one of these options is perfect. Now, if you have the roller, it can be a little easier to roll up more towards the groin area. And same with the balls on top of a block, you'll be able to come a little bit higher. Now, do me a favor and check back in with that breath. Now, anything you're doing, if you're not able to take a deep breath, it's too much, guys. So check in. Are you still able to take those deep breaths that we started with? And if not, then back it off. You need to do something a little less. Maybe you're putting too much pressure on yourself. If all of this is still too much, you could take your double balls, sit, and you can do this rolling, almost like a rolling pin on the inner thighs here. You could even use a rolling pin if you had one. All right. So when you feel ready, we'll start to make our way to side number 2. So your options again, roller, balls on top of a block. So laying on the belly and taking the leg out to the side. And it's pretty much straight out from my hip. So notice if you're extending your leg down, see if you can bring it up so that your knee and your hip are pretty much in line. You can do some bending and straightening and bending and straightening. You could do some internal and external rotation. And of course, up and down the leg works just great too. And then just really close your eyes and get intuitive and tune in and see what you need. Be careful again of your lower back. It's easy to come into a lot of extension here. We're so focused on the inner thigh that we start getting into too much extension. So if that's the case, you might choose to just relax down and maybe just bend and straighten the leg or shimmy the leg back and forth. Up and down, so doing some cross fiber work there. But over and over, check in with your breath. Ooh, I'm doing some circles. That will work on the balls, not so much on a roller. And be careful if your balls are on top of your block that they don't fall off. Now, if you're on your right side right now, you're back to affecting that liver meridian line once again. So emotions that are associated with that liver meridian are anger and depression, resentment and frustration. So sometimes when we're stuck in that meridian line, if there's energy that's stuck there, chi that's stuck, sometimes we'll come up with emotions we don't even know where they're coming from. You might want to check in and see if things sort of move through and some of those emotions are dispersed. Maybe you can let that go. So let's take 3 more breaths. And once you've finished with those 3 breaths, we will start to come off of those balls. And go ahead and take your balls out of your tote now. And you're going to be placing your 2 balls on your upper trapezius area. So here, so not on my neck, although there's nothing wrong with doing the neck. It's just not what we're doing now. So upper trapezius area right in here, you'll be laying down. So once you get yourself situated, be careful you don't catch your hair in there. Once you get yourself situated, I'm going to turn this way now. You might choose to eventually use a block to lift your hips up. You might not. For some of us, this is going to be plenty intense. If you just bought your balls, they're probably really hard, and this can be, or not really hard, but harder than mine, which have been used a lot. So it might be too intense to do anything more than just lay here. Some of you might choose to lift your hips up either actively, or you could slide your block underneath you, or a blanket or a pillow. Once you have yourself situated, you'll start to move those arms up and down like a snow angel across the body. You might reach your arms back and just stay there. You could do some circles with the arm, one or both. Now, if all of this is way too intense, you could take your balls to a wall and do the same thing. So I'm here, I'm placing those balls against a wall, and I'm leaning in and I'm doing similar movements. You could even move back and forth. That's easier to do on the wall, but it's possible to do on the floor. If you're on the floor, hands behind the head, and you lift the head up, support your neck, and just go side to side. And then over and over again, remember, check in. Are you still able to take a deep breath? If not, guess what? You need to back it off. So we're affecting that bladder meridian line with this release, with the balls here. Deep breaths, full inhales, complete exhales. And the bladder meridian line is associated with the emotion of fear. And jealousy and suspicion are also associated with the bladder meridian line. So sometimes we might find ourselves having emotions, again, that we don't understand. We're fearful. And right now, there's a lot of reasons to be fearful. So maybe it's legitimate, but sometimes we find ourselves being really afraid when there's not a good reason. It might simply mean you've got energy stuck in this meridian line. Good. So let's take 5 more breaths here. Moving, you can stay still. Either is fine. Very slowly starting to make your way out. And eventually finding your way onto your hands and your knees. So we're going to move through some cat-cows, but really focusing on the thoracic spine doing the movement or initiating the movement. Okay, so what we're not trying to do is dump into the lower back. So hands and knees. And the first thing we're going to do is tuck the chin, press into the hands, and see how round I can get my upper back by just slightly leaning forward. So I'm actually letting my chin move down. I'm really thinking about this upper back rounding out. And then from there, I'm going to lengthen my chin, not cranking on the neck, but lifting it forward and rolling my shoulders back, and that same sort of lengthening out of the front side of my body. So what I'm not doing is just dumping into this low back. I'm now pressing into my hands and pulling my heart forward. And then I'll bring my chin to my chest, round the upper back, press into the hands, and then even lean it a little forward, upper back really rounding out, and then lead with that chin and chest to lengthen the heart forward and slowly back and forth. Can you move with your breath, inhaling and exhaling? So moving into the cat part of this, maybe with an exhale, and then leading with the heart moving forward with an inhale. So take a full breath in for each movement or out for each movement. And after your next round, pause. And we'll go ahead and take your right hand behind your head. From here, you'll spin your right elbow up, moving from the rib cage. Right elbow goes towards the ceiling, and then tuck and bring your right elbow towards your left knee. So you're rounding and twisting from the middle back, the thoracic spine. And then do it again. Inhale, move from the middle back. Again, not the lower back. And then tuck and round. See if you can move from the rib cage, middle back, thoracic spine. Do it again. Inhale up. Exhale, tuck and bring the hips back a little, elbow towards left knee. One more time. Inhale and exhale, under and across. We'll do the other side. Right hand comes down. Left hand behind the head, spin up, rib cage moves in up towards the left, and then tuck and round towards the right knee. You don't have to touch it, you're just moving in that direction. Spin open, breathe in. Exhale, down across, moving from the middle back. And we go up again, inhale. Exhale, under. We'll do that one more time. Inhale. Exhale, under. All right, so left hand comes back down. We're going to reach the right hand up towards the ceiling this time. And then in yoga, we call it threading the needle. Slide your right arm under, put the back of the shoulder on the earth. And then you might support your head with your hand or a block, left hand underneath your forehead. Now, some of you will stay here and you'll feel plenty in this trap, shoulder blade, back of shoulder, arm. Some of you will not get what you need out of this, so you have a couple of options. You can make it a little bit more by bringing your hips to your heels like a child's pose. And some of you might actually lay down right on top of your arm. Still spinning my chest towards the earth though. Be careful you don't lay down and then roll away from it, and then you won't feel anything anymore. So back of this right shoulder, shoulder blade, trapezius area. If you feel pinching in the front, you may need to adjust your arm up or down. So play with it. It shouldn't be pinching in the front. So again, it could go up or down. All of this is about what you're feeling. It does not matter what it looks like. As long as you're feeling it in the area I'm suggesting, then you're good to go. So we're back to focusing on this bladder meridian line on the right side. Now, the other thing is with the thoracic spine, when it's locked up, if it doesn't move much, everything above it and below it will be affected. So what does that mean? Maybe your stiff neck is actually coming from your lack of mobility in your middle back. Maybe your stiff and painful lower back is actually coming from this lack of mobility in your thoracic spine. Whatever isn't moving properly, what's above it or below it has to take over. Slowly make your way out. If you feel like you need to do anything like a cat-cow again before we switch sides, please take care of yourself. Otherwise, left arm reaches up, slide that left arm under, and check it out. Maybe this side you stay on your knees. Maybe this side you need more and you bring your hips to your heels or lay all the way on your belly. Maybe the arm needs to be in a slightly different position, up or down. Check back in with your breath. Full inhales, complete exhales. And we'll take 5 more breaths here. And once you've completed your 5 breaths, or whenever you feel ready to come out, you'll come out. And so we're going to put your balls back in your totes, if you have one. And I'll show you a few options for this next one. So some of you, if you have a couple of blocks, will use blocks. It's not necessary, but it just adds one element. Maybe someday you'll choose to get some blocks if you don't have any right now. So if you have blocks, and again, don't worry if you don't, I'll show you what to do if you don't. You might place your balls on top of your block, and that is going to go middle-ish back. You'll adjust up or down depending on what your body does or does not tolerate. So we'll find the position where the balls are just right almost in between the shoulder blades. And then I like to put my other block on its tallest setting so that my neck is nice and supported. If you do not have a block, you'll just place those balls on the earth and do something similar. Now, some of you might feel uncomfortable in your neck, then like, ugh, I'm dangling my head too much. So you might need a block or a pillow under your head. Now, if you're doing this and you're going, oh my God, this is so intense, I'm not surprised. This is a really tight area for most of us. So maybe it makes more sense to come back to the wall again. Okay, so again, just so you can see, the balls are right maybe at the lowest part of my tips of my shoulder blades. Again, super important, check in. If you cannot take a deep breath, move the balls up a little bit. Most likely they need to go up. It's very unusual that they need to go down. but check it out. Maybe they need to move a little up, maybe a little down. There's no need to go on the most intense position on your body. There's no need, okay? Remember, we're all connected. It's one unit. So even if you move those balls up 2 inches away from whatever's the most intense spot, you're still helping that spot. And in some instances, you're actually benefiting it more because if an area is irritated or really locked down or tight, or inflamed, you might actually cause more inflammation if you go too deep or it's too much right now. So again, options on the block, off the block, or on the wall. Now, if you had a foam roller, that could also work. But you'd still want some support under your head. So we're gonna do some more of those arm movements like we did earlier when the balls were on the traps. I like to clasp my hands sometimes when I reach over my head for these. I might just circle my arms around. I might reach my arms back and pause and take some deep breaths. So I can reach my arms back and simply pause. I could squiggle a little side to side. So I'm kind of leaning left, leaning right. I could even lift my head up like I did earlier when the balls were on my upper traps and just do a little side to side. All of this could be done on the wall. Don't be afraid to move to something that's appropriate for you. Check in with the breath. Check, check, check. Check back in over and over. You could do some extension and flexion over the balls. So I'm holding my head and I'm leaning back and then I'm coming back up, taking some breaths, inhaling and exhaling. We're gonna be here for 5 more breaths, so you do what you need to do. If that means you actually come off of the balls for right now, that's also okay. So when you stop the movement, whatever it is you're doing, or when we come off of the balls, you actually should have a sense of relief and it should feel better in whatever area you were rolling. If it actually feels worse, you went too deep. So there's how you know. You also know if you can't take a deep breath right now, it's too much. So in many instances, more is not better, right? So let's all start making our way off of your balls. And then we're going to come back to using your Pilates ball, if you have one, or again, your couch pillow or rolled up towel. We're going to be placing the ball on your right rib cage and laying down on it. So this is, again, thoracic spine mobility, which will help everything above it and everything below it. And sometimes working this area will be more beneficial than wherever that pain is showing up. Oh, my neck is so stiff, or oh, my back is so tight. Sometimes when we get really aggressive in either one of those areas, it actually can make the area more angry. So laying on the rib cage on the ball, I like to support my head with a block or a pillow or something. So start with your knees pretty bent, knees in line with hips. And then just keep adjusting that ball up or down. Remember, it doesn't have to be in one particular area. It can be lower or higher. So find a place where you're somewhat comfortable. And if you feel any pain in your lower back, you might choose to place a pillow or a block between your thighs also. So first thing we're going to do is just take some deep breaths. So just like we did when we had the belly under the ball, you'll breathe in and feel your rib cage press on that ball as you breathe deeply. You might even choose to see if you're breathing into your ribs by placing your left hand on your left rib cage. So go ahead and take a deep breath in. Pause. I'm feeling my ribs expanding. If they're expanding on this side, they are on that side too. Exhale slowly. Keep doing that. So know that if this area is locked up, and for most of us, unfortunately, it is, it means you can't take a deep breath, which means you can't access the type of breath that will bring you into a parasympathetic state. That's rest, digest, recover state. So if your breath is shortened just in your chest, if you can't breathe into your belly and ribs, you are living in that sympathetic, running from a tiger, constant state. Eventually that will make you sick. So deep breath in. Long breath out. Now you can play with the leg positioning. So maybe the knees stay just like they are. Okay? It might feel okay in your body to let this left leg just step back a little bit. You might feel a little stretching in this left hip flexor. If that causes irritation in the low back, I'd say don't do that today. Okay, so either stack your knees or you can try stepping your left leg back a little bit. Check in with that low back. Now from here, you might choose to bring your top left elbow over your ear so you're getting more of a stretch on this left side too. And continue with your breathing. Full inhale, maybe pause at the top this time. And exhale, slow exhale. Deep breath in. And a slow exhale. Another breath in. And a long, slow exhale. If you stepped your left leg back, maybe go ahead and bring it back in line for this next part. So we'll take your left arm now and sweep it a half circle over your head, reach to the left, and then a half circle back over your head and come back towards your thighs. And just this again, half circle, breathe in, and that half circle over your head, breathe out. If that feels too twisty on your back, low back, maybe again a block between your thighs or pillow. Maybe you need to move your knees up a bit, or maybe this one just isn't for you. We want to be moving again from this middle thoracic spine. So think about that as you move. Middle back, thoracic spine, rib cage area. Breathe in. And exhale, bring it back. And 2 more times, up and around. 1 more time. Take it up and around. And bring it back. Good. So start to make your way off of the ball. I'm going to have you take a moment and just lay down on your back. Close your eyes. Do a little check-in. Does one side of your rib cage feel different than the other? Can you breathe deeper into the right side? Or does it feel that way? And then we'll start to make our way to side number 2. So the ball will be under your left rib cage this time. And then always checking in because maybe this side you need more or less support. So again, I like a block under my head for this, but you might get to this side and feel like, I don't really need it on this side. You might need support between your thighs on this one, or maybe you don't. Maybe on the other side, stepping that leg back works, but maybe on this side it doesn't. So check in. And then we start to breathe. So again, I like to place my right hand on my right rib cage so I can feel the expansion of the breath. So breathe into that right hand. Your ribs will press onto that ball or blanket or pillow underneath you. And exhale slowly. And you can take your top right arm up and over your ear and continue to breathe. Good. Keep breathing. Keep focusing on expanding the rib cage with your breath. Good. And then we'll start to take some of those movements with the arm, sweeping the arm up and over your head, reach out to the right. And again, I recommend bringing the knees back more in line. It can be a lot, but check in with your body. As long as it's not pinching in the lower back or overstretching the lower back, whatever feels better for you, it's fine. If you leave the leg back, you might feel more in the hip flexor, that's fine. But if it's sharp or pinchy or twisty in the low back, please support. This really is intended to be more of a middle back movement. So back and forth with that arm, use your breath, inhale, sweep it over. Exhale, bring it back. Inhaling, sweeping it over. And exhale, bringing it back. We'll do that 2 more times. And then you'll remove all of your toys, set them off to the side. Back onto your back for a moment, check in, notice if you feel more expansion in the rib cage with your breath. Notice how each side feels energetically. All right, so we'll go ahead and take your balls out of their tote once again. And you're going to be placing 1 ball on each glute. I will show you. Now, if you have piriformis syndrome or sciatica that comes from a pinching in that sciatic nerve that's underneath your piriformis, I would be careful about placing the balls right on the most intense spot. Smashing it, if it's already inflamed, is going to only irritate it. So the balls can go above or below or more lateral or more medial to the area where it's most intense. So check in, really honor what you are feeling today. You'll place your 2 balls under your glutes and then bring the soles of your feet together and let your knees come out wide. If that is too intense on your hips or your back to have the knees out, And just place the soles of the feet on the earth. Now, if this is just too intense in general to even have the balls there, then you know you have your wall as an option. But if you're able, balls underneath your glutes, soles of the feet together, and take about 5 deep breaths. So inner thighs stretching. You might feel hips a bit. And of course, direct pressure on the glute area. And again, if you have sciatica or piriformis syndrome happening right now, move the balls a little above or below the most intense spot. Deep breath in. Long breath out. One more full inhale. And long exhale. And start to shimmy your hips side to side. Now you might notice the balls start to walk themselves off of your body. Just lift the hips back up, place them back, and then continue side to side. You can leave your knees out, or maybe you start to bring the soles of your feet to the earth now with your knees pointed towards the ceiling instead. You might find that if you lean a little bit in one direction, it feels good to pause for a moment and then shift and go the other way and pause. We'll all come back to center with the soles of the feet on the earth. Go ahead and lift your hips up and remove the ball from your left side. You'll leave the ball underneath your right glute and then start to do, it looks kind of like the clamshell exercise. The right knee goes out and in. And then keep moving the ball around until you find a spot it seems like it really should stay. And there might be more than one. But eventually find one, stay there, keep your knee out to the right, and do some of that shimmying of the hips side to side. Now, if you cross your right ankle over your left thigh, it will be more intense, which may or may not be appropriate for you. Can you take a deep breath? Yes, then you're fine. If you feel like you're moving into fight or flight because it's so intense, then we need to move it, change it, adjust it. If you're not getting what you need, you could also sit. Sit all the way up, or maybe come onto your forearms or one forearm. If you sit, you can actually make circles. And of course, the wall is another option, guys. It's always there for you. So maybe the wall is more appropriate. And keep that in mind if you're ever somewhere where it's not really appropriate to lay down on the floor. The wall is a great option. You could also do what we call pin and stretch. So I pin the ball and then I start to move my limb. So my right leg is doing like a big giant bicycle movement or a marching type movement. I can move the leg up and down, side to side, bend and straighten. This can be done sitting or laying down. More intense if you're sitting, of course. So do what's appropriate. You have 5 more breaths on this side, and then you'll make your way to the second side. So breathing deeply. And just a couple more breaths. Unless you're ready, if you're ready to switch sides, and please do. And we'll start to transition to side number 2, starting with the knee going in and out. And just again, moving that ball around, up, down, just kind of trying to find that place that you're like, oh yeah, that's the spot, and then stay there. And then you can start to shimmy your hips side to side. Most people have one side that's a little different than the other, so that's normal if that's the case for you, totally normal. Maybe you need less on this side, maybe you need more on this side, maybe ankle over thigh. Maybe you need to sit to get what you need out of this side. Maybe you need to move to the wall on this side. All of those things are normal and fine. Breathe deep. You can do some of that pin and stretch, bicycle movement with the leg, marching movement with the leg. You can be on your forearms or your hands or laying all the way down. Or again, you could go to the wall. Anywhere on this glute is fine, as long as you're able to take a deep breath. No sharp shooting pain. And when you stop, it should feel better, not worse. So if anything we did today feels worse, know that next time you probably need to do a less intense version of that rolling technique, or like bring it to the wall or something, or just move it a little above, below, left or right of whatever area was super intense for you. Just a few more breaths here on this side. Letting go of any of those emotions that might be popping up. Let yourself feel them, but let them work their way through and out of your body. And we'll slowly make our way off of the balls. And we'll make our way back onto our knees, actually one knee. So I like to give myself a little cushion. We're going to be doing a kneeling position. So you can fold your mat a little bit like this to give yourself a little extra cushion, or maybe put a pillow underneath your knee if you're on a harder surface. So what we're going to do is put the right knee on your pad and step the left foot a short step forward. So it's not a big long stride. It's actually knee right over ankle. So we'll do a pelvic tilt. So that means belly button towards rib cage, butt squeezes tight, and I'm lifting up this way. So here's extension, here's flexion. We're going for flexion. Okay, so it's my right knee on the ground, my left foot is forward. If you're having a crazy hard time balancing, you might bring yourself close to a wall and you'd have your left side of your body towards a wall. Okay, so pelvic tilt, squeeze that right butt cheek. If you don't have a wall, I recommend left hand to inner thigh. Reach your right hand up. Okay, and again, a wall is an option. Turn a little bit to the right with your chest, and then lean to the left, just a little bit. Keep this tuck, keep the squeeze on your butt. Hip flexor, maybe up even into the hip flexor where it connects into my torso. That part most of us don't get to. If you're feeling it in your lower back, start all over. It probably means you're coming into extension. Tuck, Squeeze your butt. A little turn to the right and a lean to the left. Take a big breath in and a long breath out. Okay, so come out of it. We're not switching sides quite yet. Step your left foot to the left. So I was here. I'm going to step my left foot to the left. All the same stuff. Tuck. If you're not against a wall, left hand to the inner thigh. Right hand reaches up. Turn a little to the right and lean a little to the left. So typically a little bit more intense, not for everybody. But again, if it's too intense, maybe you back it off and bring the foot a little bit closer to where we started. Breathe in and breathe out. And slowly make your way out. And we'll move to side number 2. So left knee is down, right foot. It's a short step, just a short step here. Okay. Tuck under, pelvic tilt. Your either hand on the wall or right hand to inner right thigh will help you keep a little balance. Left hand reaches up, keep the squeeze, keep the tuck, turn a little to the left, lean a little to the right. Breathe into your rib cage. You're keeping this core tight, right? Squeezing the glutes will make it hard to breathe low into the lower belly. Breathe wide into your rib cage. Carefully come out, and we'll take that big step to the right. All the same stuff. Tuck. Squeeze your butt. Right hand to the inner thigh or on your wall. Left hand reaches up. Turn your chest to the left, lean to the right. One more big breath in. And one more long breath out. And slowly start to make your way out. So you have 2 choices for your Shavasana, which we're going to move into now. You could do a neck release while you're resting in your Shavasana. If you make that choice, you'll want your balls back inside their tote. So it will be a non-moving release for this if you're choosing that, okay? So what I mean is you'll get yourself situated, balls can come on top of a block, and you'll simply let the release happen without doing any movement. If you don't have a block, you could place your hands underneath the balls and just simply place them there. If you don't feel like you want that, you can just take a more traditional Shavasana. Either way, get yourself into a position where you can just relax. Once you get there, take a big, big belly breath and an open mouth exhale. Just let everything go now. So find stillness. We've got about 1.5 minutes, a little shorter Shavasana, but if you want a longer Shavasana, then you please take it. When we're done, you are welcome to stay as long as you'd like. Letting everything go now. Letting gravity do the work 100%, whether you're letting your neck do a release on the balls or not. Let your body just melt. So for those of you who do have to be done right at 7, you can start to make your way up. For those of you who don't, you can just stay. For those of you who have to be done right at 7, start to deepen your breath, bring some small movements into your body. If you can stay for a few more minutes, maybe start to just move your neck around on the balls if you've got the balls underneath your neck. Everybody else who needs to be done at 7, go ahead and make your way up, have a seat, hands at your heart center. Just having a moment of gratitude, regardless of whether you're sitting or still laying down. So grateful for this body, for this life, for this practice. If you're sitting, you can bring your thumbs to your third eye and just take a moment to be grateful once again. The divine light in me honors and sees the divine light in all of you. Namaste, my friends. Have a really awesome day. Bye, guys.